We're back. It's a daily stripe. Fisher to Southwest Snacks Kreider. We're going to have to cover the NBA. We're not going to be able to cover Succession today, but I will be going to watch tonight and we'll be able to cover tomorrow so I could catch up with you guys. We know it's not Carl, but that's all these guys have told me so far, and that the show is excellent. And it's not about being happy with the ending, it's just about the show being great. So kudos to you guys. I'm staying off my phone. Can maybe do me a little good. Couldn't hurt. I'm wearing a Seattle Supersonics hat for those who are not watching on YouTube but listening. And I'm wearing this hat because it's the only team that can't hurt me anymore that I like. I would love to have been like Tatum's injury was the end all be all, but Brown having one of his worst games, especially from a turnover standpoint. Horford's lack of presence, I felt in the paint at times. The lack of advantage taken up when they went small against us, and really just being outmaneuvered from the jump by Spoelstra and the Heat. Caleb Martin. I know Jimmy Butler's in an amazing playoffs, and he won the Eastern Conference Finals MVP. Can't really argue it, but I think Caleb Martin should have been a close second to winning that award. And he had an amazing series. And on the broadcast, every time he started hitting a shot, Reggie Miller was like ka-ching, ka-ching, because he's earned himself quite a bit of money. And while they brought up a good point of, yes, Tatum hurt his ankle pretty much in the first couple of plays. The Heat have done this without Tyler Herro the entire series. So just a really bad showing out of Boston after clawing their way back from a 3-0 deficit. Missoula is looking like he'll stay, and they're just going to get some veteran guys on the bench with him, which I'm not like angry at. I know Monty Williams is still available, and I would love to entertain that. Nick Nurse going to the Philadelphia 76ers. A lot of crazy moves. Bob Myers, two-time executive of the year of the Golden State Warriors. He's stepped down. But you got to give kudos to the Miami Heat, who were a 1 seed last year. I think we're bottom 4 in players, or top 4, I should say, in most players game missed. So they had the most games missed by players across their roster, or in the top 4 throughout the season. And they got together in the playoffs. Butler did his thing. Bam, did a lot of stuff on the court. I felt yesterday in non-counting stats. A lot of screens, very physical out there at the top point of attack. Lowry hit big shots. Gabe Vincent hit big shots. Obviously, we mentioned Caleb Martin. Strus hit a couple shots. And Highsmith, he came in when they needed him to, and he was aggressive. This was a Miami Heat team that was hungry, probably the hungriest team. And I know you can't really count that or measure that, but I felt the way at least they played the entire playoffs. That's how I would describe them, and confident. After every game they lost, every reporter asked Jimmy Butler if he was worried. He said, "No, we're going to win the next one. We're going to win the next one." And even if they didn't, they won the game that mattered the most, and that was Game 7 in Boston, which we all thought was a tough place to play, but apparently, their Miami Heat are a tough team to play. So a little disappointing, but I would rather give kudos to the Miami Heat and what they did versus coming on here and saying Boston blew it, Boston this, Boston that. I think the Miami Heat have been the best team in the Eastern Conference team. Maybe not on paper, but they've been playing the best team basketball in the Eastern Conference this playoffs, and I'm impressed with what they did.
Yeah, clearly they're now in the finals, and I want to give some credit to all of South Beach and South Florida, because not only are the Miami Heat an 8 seed in the finals, but so are the Florida Panthers. Upsetting, I think, the Hurricanes, and obviously getting all the way to where they got. So we've got 2 teams in the Miami area that are in the finals now for the respective sport. And I think that's really cool for the city of Miami.
Yeah, absolutely.
Both the lower seeded team too. So I'm interested to see what happens with just like travel around that area. And, because both those teams will presumably have home games around the same time. But Josh, I think your props are duly deserved for the Heat. They were the better team in this series, just flat out. And when I hopped on with Raymond, what I had talked about was, one, the Celtics had not won 3 games in a row. They did do that in this series. So they were able to kind of break that streak. But this was the team that we had seen the entire playoffs, up and down, up and down. And the ups looked great and the downs looked really, really low. And once again, that's what happened last night. I don't think like Spo deserves due credit. The Celtics did not lose this game 7, because of Missoula. And I know that Tatum, the injury was unfortunate. It certainly had an impact. I actually think it had more of an impact from an intensity and a togetherness standpoint. I mean, you look at Tatum, he's their best player. We know that. He's their number one. And for whatever reason, this is a team that has kind of, they go as he goes. So when he's intense and he's driving to the hoop and he's in rhythm with his shot, the rest of the team kind of follows suit. And yes, I think, throughout the regular season, there were times where Jaylen Brown picked things up when Tatum wasn't necessarily having the best shooting night, but we know he does so much more than that. The reason why so many people, when they're building their list of top 10 players in the NBA, have him as a top 7 guy, some have him as a top 5 guy, is because he rebounds well, he plays defense well, and he hits timely shots. And on any given night, he can go for 50, like he did in Game 7 against in the Eastern Conference semifinals against the 76ers. So I do think, Al didn't do enough the entire playoffs, but I think we were also a little bit surprised maybe last year in the playoffs by how well Al Horford played. So if you kind of averaged out both playoffs last year and this year, like you probably get what you thought you would get from Al Horford. But I did think he hit timely shots. If it came down to it, the Heat just hit every single clutch shot that they needed to. Anytime the Celtics started crawling back, it was a Martin 3. Jimmy Butler shot the 3-point ball really well. He didn't have a good night from the floor, but obviously he got to the free throw line. And once again, he shot the 3 well. Bam does a lot of different things. I think what I get from him out of this series is, I'm going to point back to that conversation, Josh, that you and I had about him earlier, where he is undoubtedly not a superstar. He is a star. And with that comes the inconsistency of not having 25 points, 10 plus rebounds, and 5 plus assists every single game. I think that looking ahead to this finals matchup, he is going to have his hands full. He had his hands full with the length and size when Rob Will, Al Horford, and Jason Tatum were on the floor. Nikola Jokic is bigger than all those guys. He's better than all those guys. And Bam is going to have to be the primary defender with a backup big in Cody Zeller. Kevin Love cannot guard Nikola Jokic. So that will be a really interesting test for this Miami Heat team. Now, I do think that they have they're better defensively from a ball pressuring standpoint and in the passing lanes than the Lakers were. Their guards and their forwards, they guard hard. They get after guys. I mean, Gabe Vincent, he's 6'1". He didn't give up an inch against Smart.
He doesn't feel 6'1".
No, he really doesn't. And even Duncan Robinson gave good defensive minutes. Martin obviously can defend well. He's got good length. Jimmy, of course, is a really good defender. I saw Spo say, it starts with a defensive identity. It starts with your best players. And when you have Bam Adebayo, who for the last 5 years has been considered, a top 5 defensive player in the league, and you have Jimmy Butler, who's one of the best two-way stars in the league, that's a great foundation to build upon. And then you add other guys in. Obviously, Kyle Lowry, when he was at his best, was a top defensive guard in the league as well. This team is really well put together. They know how to play basketball the right way. I don't want to write them off in the finals. Like
I don't think anyone does.
Nuggets in 5. I don't know. I think most people are already saying the Nuggets are going to easily win this thing, either in a sweep or in 5. I don't see how you can look at the track record of this current Heat team and what they've done and say that they won't give them a great series. Not even just a good series, but a great series. They're going to challenge them. And Murray and Porter Jr. and Bruce Brown and KCP hit a lot of shots against the Lakers. This team has been hot from the shooting standpoint. And if anything dips, the Heat will take advantage of that. And obviously, like you mentioned, like Hero could have potentially played in this game. He was questionable. He was shooting pregame. He'll be back, and they'll need that offensive juice from him. But a tremendous victory by the better team in this series. who's playing the best basketball in the East, like you mentioned, Brown is the major question mark for you guys going forward, whether or not you want to pay him the supermax and pair Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown together for what would look like the remainder of their primes. But with that would come roster maneuvering that you would have to take care of, where you would lose some of the depth that you had with this team. You wouldn't be able to have Gallo, Brogdon, Smart, Horford, Rob Will, Derek White. You wouldn't be able to have all of those guys. And I'll just mention, last night, the best player for the Celtics was Derek White, the guy that hit the game-winning shot in Game 6. And I was watching, and I felt at a certain point, I was like, man, like it really feels like he's got a little bit of the case of Marcus Smart's here, where he wants to take every big shot. But then I kind of countered myself, and I was like, well, he kind of has to, because no one else is stepping up. And Jaylen Brown had more turnovers in a Celtics uniform in a playoff game than since 1981. So obviously that was a huge detriment to the team in Game 7 and a major reason as to why they lost. But yeah, I think all signs point to, what do you do with Jaylen Brown?
I mean, I think there's just like a lot of issues. I'll just address that quickly. With Brown, and then we can get back to the Heat and Nuggets series, which I think, Nick, you said that was a series you would be looking forward to. Then you think could go 6 or 7 games. So I'm not disagreeing with his notion over there at all. I think we all think the Heat can give him a tough time. We've been watching them very closely. With Jaylen Brown, on one hand, it's like it's almost like the Jalen Hurts thing, where people are like, oh, why do you really only did it for 1 year? Why are you going to pay him the max? Why are you giving him all this money, the max in football? Like, why are you giving him all this? I know there isn't really one, but why are you giving him like the biggest contract you can? On one hand, it goes, is he really a top 5 guy, top 10 guy? I don't know. And that correlates to like the top 25 in the NBA. But on the other hand, like, who else are you going to give it to if you don't give it to him? Are you going to find a guy as good as Jaylen Brown out there? Can you replace a Jaylen Brown? Can you send him to Atlanta for Trae Young? Can you do this? Like, do you even want to do that? Or are there all these things that like if you don't give him the supermax, you have to move him. And if you move him, you have to move him for something that's ready now. You have to upgrade him. And I don't know where you find that upgrade.
I mean, I think Trae Young is an upgrade.
Okay.
Especially he's the number one game. He's the number one guy on his team. We've seen that. We haven't seen that from Jaylen Brown. And I would probably
do Brogdon and Brown and picks.
Yeah, and I also know that the glaring issue last year was not taken care of enough. And I know Brogdon was hurt, but he wasn't playing that role on this team of being the point guard and bringing the ball up. That was still Jason Tatum when we got to the playoffs and we got into late game situations. It was still Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown bringing the ball up. And if the guys that are viable candidates, I think, for trades, Trae Young, I'll throw Damian Lillard out there because we still don't know what the Blazers are going to do. But both of those guys, to me, are a clear upgrade from Jaylen Brown. And they've both been bona fide number ones on their team for a long time. I know Trae Young's, I guess, just 5 years. But he will rise up to the challenge. Damian Lillard, we know he has done that before on way worse teams than the Celtics team. And yeah, I'm with you. If the price to get rid of him is not matching what you're going to get back, don't do it. But you're just going to be in a conundrum if you pay him the supermax and you have Tatum on a supermax too. No other team is doing that right now.
It's the turnovers where he just hasn't been able. It's been an issue for back-to-back seasons now, and he hasn't been able to fix it. Like Reggie said it on the broadcast, at the points where we were down 11 or 12 and they're raining threes, they're getting defensive stops. It's not like the Heat scored 130 points. They only scored 103 points. The Celtics are getting stops. They're getting turnovers. They're getting boards. Like, they're getting the possession back, but they're trying to get it all back in one go and raining threes. And they shot so poorly from 3. And you're missing Tatum's explosiveness, and you're missing Brown feeling too pressured and his handle being too weak to get to the basket well enough, like he's capable of doing. And if you want to look at the biggest glaring stat, if you combine both of them in Game 6, Tatum and Brown, they were 23 of 25 from the line. 23 of 25. They got to the line, I think, 5 times combined, 6 times combined. It's a 19 free throws is the difference, man. And they are just raining threes. At a certain point, get to the rack. I mean, Bam was in foul trouble. And that's where you lose Tatum's aggressiveness, and that's where Brown's weak handle going to the left side becomes an issue. But I don't know. I gotta see. Yeah, if we get a good value back for him, great. If not, I don't know if he's worth risking the depth. But I also don't know if Tatum's.
Here's what
I don't know
say
if Tatum's a guy you could win because of yet.
Maybe not, but I think that I have a higher indication and belief in him becoming that guy than I do in banking on the two of them beating any other deep good team going forward. Like I would rather sustain the depth and ride out Jason Tatum for the rest of his career as a Boston Celtic, knowing already that he's a top 7 guy in the NBA, than force a pairing of him and Brown and lose your 3 through 7 or your 4 through 7. Just I'm talking about guys on your roster, and put together a supporting cast that looks more like my Dallas Mavericks this year, which guess what? It's really, really hard to win because the rest of the NBA, a lot of those other presidents of basketball operations know what they're doing, and they're going to continue to get guys on cheap contracts that are veterans that know how to play in the playoffs. And when you play a team like the Lakers this year, you'll lose that matchup. And I know I'm just, the Lakers obviously are in the Western Conference, opposite of the East where the Celtics are, but they would play teams like the Heat, like new iterations of this Heat team, or whatever the Cavs turn themselves into. We'll see what happens with Masai and the Raptors if they can turn things around. But some of these savvy teams and well-run organizations, you can't beat them with 2 stars and no one else on your squad. It's just going to be too tough.
Yeah, agreed. Well, we have a good final. I think we have a good finals matchup coming up. I think Jokic and Butler have been the 2 best players in the playoffs. I'm excited to see how much Jimmy has left in the tank after multiple grueling series, where he's had a lot of usage, and same with Jokic. How these two attack each other. It's gonna be really fun. And one of them is gonna win their first ring. So really quick gut checks, and then we'll go to baseball. Nick, who you got? Nuggets or Heat?
I'd say the Nuggets, probably in like 6 games.
Cool. T-Dot?
I think they're going to do it. I think the Heat are going to win.
And how many?
I'm going to say 7. It's hard not to say 7 when they're playing against Jokic, but they've shown that they can beat a team in Game 7 on the road. Denver's a really, really tough place to play. Now they actually don't have a lot of time, because they only get 2 full days before they play on Thursday night, Game 1. But you get Hero back. I think guys are just willing to step up. And if they can flip the script, I'm talking about Bam getting in foul trouble. If Jokic can get in foul trouble, if they can get in under his skin, which I think they'll have a better opportunity to do with guys like Lowry and Jimmy, I think they can play this team in a way that no one else has played them thus far. And yeah, I just don't want to bet against this Heat team right now. As good as the Nuggets have been, and they deserve all the credit, and they might totally prove me wrong, but I'm tired of being on the opposite side of Jimmy Butler.
All right. I'm going to go with Nick, but if it goes to 7, I think he gets it done. I could easily see either of these guys being. I think this is tough. I think it's a really tough call. I think people saying it's a gimme for the Nuggets are being a little overzealous and have not been paying enough. They're expecting for the pumpkins to become pumpkins again at midnight, but I don't necessarily think that's the case anymore.
In the last 4 years, this team has been to the finals twice in the Eastern Conference Finals, Game 7. And
this is
a potentially game-winning shot. Like, this is a really, really good team and has been for the last 3 years.
It's Spoelstra's 7th time in the finals since 2006.
Yeah. And Pat Riley, like we mentioned, Nick and I on that one show, 25% of all of the NBA finals he's been involved in some capacity. So yeah, these guys know what they're doing.
That they do. Baseball guys, we're 2 months in. 2 months in. Standings check. The Rays still pretty hot. They're in first. They're 4 up on the O's. They have the best record in baseball. The O's, Yankees, Sox, and Blue Jays, all in the AL East, all have winning records. In the AL West, outside of the Athletics, who are so pitiful and so pathetic, probably the worst team I've ever seen assembled in a baseball season in my entire life, every team in that division has a winning record as well. So the Mariners are in fourth, 28 and 26. The Angels, who everyone is keeping a very close eye on, are 6 out of the Rangers, who are in first, 3 back of the Astros, who are in second. But they are 3 out of the wild card. NL East, Braves have a lead. Marlins, Nick, who you were high on and thought could be really good, or sneaky good, or lurking. Jorge Soler and Brian De La Cruz are hitting the tar off the ball. We were worried about their lineup, but those 2 guys have been fantastic. The Mets are having a tough time putting it together. The Phillies are, had that hangover. And in the NL West, the Diamondbacks, a team that we all thought could be very sneaky. They're at 30-plus wins right now. The Dodgers have kicked it into high gear. The Giants have been pretty hot. My question to you guys is, I didn't mention these centrals. Are we with the next iteration, maybe not next year or the year after, but the next time the league makes some changes, would they have to make some changes to the divisions, you guys think? Because the centrals in both leagues are so bad, and specifically the AL Central, none of those teams, all those are mid-market and lower. You know what I'm saying? The Royals, the Guardian, they don't really give it. The Tigers, these are not teams that give up massive contracts. Even the White Sox and Twins. I know the Twins just gave one to Correa, but these aren't teams that give up massive contracts. And these are teams that are, again, like the Twins would be in last in the AL East, and they're in first in the AL Central.
Yeah, it's wild.
Is that an issue for you guys?
I mean, we've seen that division be competitive before in the past. I think it just kind of has ebbs and flows, but I mean, they've always discussed doing an expansion of the MLB. And whenever that time comes, they're going to have to rearrange some things because the 3-division system in each league just wouldn't fit. You've got 5 in every single division. So it'd more likely have to split off into a 4th division for each league and just go 4s like the NFL does, right? Where you do 32 teams. So we'll have to see what happens. But I mean, obviously the next big thing that's happening in baseball is Oakland going to Vegas. And then from there, I think they'll start to figure out, where are we going to put our expansion teams if that time, comes, which I don't really know what's taking so long, honestly, because at the end of the day, it's all about money, right? Like, how's the MLB going to profit more? And if you're putting a home in 2 new cities, whether that be in the United States or whether that be somewhere in, back to Montreal or Mexico City or wherever, that's more revenue in your pocket. So I think it's going to come soon within the next, 4 or 5 years. And then we'll have to see, I guess, what shakes out.
Do you guys think, would it be like the east, south, northwest type deal? Could they break it up like that?
I would think that it's similar to what it looks like now, and then you'd have to just kind of maybe take a team from each division. Like, obviously, I think you keep the Dodgers, the Diamondbacks, the Giants, and Padres together, like in the West, because that's like truly the West. But you take Colorado, right, and you put them in, the Midwest, or I don't know, whatever that may be.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, like, in both those centrals, a lot of it has to do with, like, just the teams aren't playing well, not only in the MLB, but also in other sports. Like, Chicago is a great sports city, but the Bulls also haven't been great. Like, the Cubs are bad, and the White Sox aren't great right now.
And
the Bears are not good. Like, when there's smoke, there's fire a little bit. I mean, and now it's spreading everywhere. And in Cleveland, like, the Cavs have not been great, right? The Browns obviously have not been great. Detroit has had a really tough time from a sports standpoint over the last 10 years. I mean, the Red Wings suck. They're really bad now. They were so good in the early 2000s. So were the Pistons, and so were the Tigers, like mid 2000s. Yeah, they were really, really good. So
Lions might be the best team in Detroit right now, and we never thought we'd be saying that.
They definitely
are 100% the best team in Detroit. So some of these markets, I think just they have the presence and history to be there and to like bring these central divisions up. There's just not, the performance has not been there. But I do think like the Tigers are playing decent. The Tigers and the Pirates are interesting because they're both young teams and they're both playing a little bit above their pay grade, I would say right now. For both of these teams to be just under 500 2 months in, like in the second spot in their division, that's not bad. That's promising going forward. But we needed the Cardinals to run away with this division and be a true playoff contender. They're at the bottom of their division, so not doing what they needed to do, right? And then the Twins and the Guardians, we expected them to be steps ahead of the rest of those three teams in their division, and they're not. While the Twins have been good, you know, they might lose this lead to the Tigers in 7 games time. They probably won't, but and the Guardians aren't a true threat. So I don't know. It might just be like we ride off this season as a wash for these divisions and hope that they continue to grow and these young players continue to develop, and that makes things more interesting. But yeah, I guess
we see
your original point, Josh, like the markets aren't necessarily the biggest issue with these divisions, in my opinion.
Yeah. We see it in football too. I mean, we were sitting here a couple years ago and we had a team from the NFC North under 500 in the playoffs. Like that happens. I think it just depends on the timing and, kind of where each team is in their organizational, path.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, outside of LeBron winning in Cleveland, though, but that Cleveland has struggled by and large. I mean, Browns have been terrible. The Indians have been up and down. I mean, I thought the Guardians, Jesus, the Guardians, I mean, they'll get Tristan McKenzie back, but Rosario and Jimenez, who were supposed to be their, stalwart, potential all-star middle infield, that hasn't panned out. I want to get your guys' hot takes, and I'll kick it off. My hot take is the NL Central is so close. I think the Cardinals still win the division. They're only 5.5 back.
It's so doable.
So doable. The bottom 2 teams in the NL Central are positive run differential. Isn't that crazy? Cubs and the Cardinals are the only 2 teams in that division with positive run differential, and they're at the bottom 2. I don't think the Cubs will keep it up, but I gotta imagine that the Cardinals, they're hitting so well.
Pitching is so bad.
Dude, their pitching is so bad. The Cardinals, what are they in runs scored? They're tied in 3rd in the NL.
That's wild.
And in the MLB, they're in the top 7. Like, I mean, the Rangers and the Rays are scoring runs at a ridiculous clip, and so
that's the best and second best team in baseball right there, record wise. And then you're talking about the Cardinals, who are, I don't know where they are, but it's, the only teams that are worse than them are the A's, the Royals, the White Sox, and the Nats.
The Jers are like, what's crazy about the Rangers, and I'll get your guys' hot takes. I just do because we just brought them up. I just want to say is, I wouldn't say the season's going as best as it can. Like, I feel like it still could be going a lot better than it is, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, obviously our bullpen has not been good, but I would say what we're getting from 3 through 5 in our rotation is as good as you can ask for. But I do think now we have Seager back fully healthy. Marcus has been playing MVP level baseball, which typically this happens in the second half of the season for this guy. So maybe he has another gear to get to. He always starts slow. This has been one of the seasons in recent where he hasn't. But we haven't had our full lineup. We still haven't had Garver too. So once we get all those guys in there, I think our lineup looks even scarier. And I think Heim's on a bit of a slid. But again, I think if Garver comes back, like maybe they can kind of rotate in, rotate out. I mean, Garver can still play behind the plate. Obviously, Heim's such an incredible fielder and calls such a good game behind the plate. But what we've gotten from Adolis and Nathaniel Lowe has been awesome. I'd still like to see us make moves at the deadline for bullpen guys and and like an additional platoon outfielder that we can get in there. But you can't. I think you're right. I think there's another level that they can go to. but you can't ask for much more from this team. They're the second best team in baseball.
I mean,
Besides, yeah, maybe DeGrom being healthy.
Right.
That's it.
That's like that to me. Seager's been out for a while, and he came back scorching. As like when the team has been so hot. Yeah, the team's been so hot, but no DeGrom is like that's my other gear they could get to. What are your guys' like hot takes after 2 months in? Give me some.
I don't know if there's any hot takes. I mean, there's a lot of things I think that we foresaw happening that's actually happening. I mean, clearly the biggest surprise for me is my Padres, but I mean, we're literally last in all of baseball in hits and batting average. In all of baseball. Dead last. But top 10 in pitching. So look, pitching was the question mark heading into the season, right? Like people thought we needed to add another starter, from the end to really, make that solid rotation. And that has not been the issue. Starting pitching has been pretty good. Bullpen every now and then, kind of gives some stuff up, but it's been bumped and bruised, and Hader's been great. But it's that lineup that everyone thought was going to be amazing. And it just fell completely flat on its face. I mean, you got a slow start from Soto. You had a hot start from Bogaerts, but now he's on a very, very slow start or big slump. Tatis took him some time to get into it, but he's getting it back. He's got the power numbers up there. It just needs to get on base more. Machado's been hurt. And a lot of these other signings haven't really worked out. Cruz has been okay, but Matt Carpenter has not been great. Grisham just can't ever figure it out at the plate. Our catching woes have just been abysmal. We just went out and signed Gary Sanchez. Hopefully he adds a little pop. I mean, can't be any worse than what we have right now. Cronenworth, inked a big deal in the offseason, and he's, I think, last in OPS and all first baseman. So it's tough, but if this team can really put it together and do what we all know they're capable of, I think they can actually make a serious, comeback mid-season. I mean, we looked at the Nationals in the past when they won the World Series. They started off really slow. Phillies last season were in the World Series. They started off real slow, fired Joe Girardi. I'm not saying you need to fire Bob Melvin, but there needs to be some sort of shakeup. I think they need to start looking at the staff, who makes the hitting, scouting reports and everything like that, and maybe shake up some guys. There's just not enough urgency, it seems like. I kind of think like, we dropped this game, we'll get the next one. I don't know. So it's frustrating to watch because our guys will go out and shove our pitchers, and then we'll only get 3 hits and score 3 runs, but 3 hits, like solo shot, 2-run shot. That's it.
That's brutal. Yeah. I mean, I think I could kind of tie everything into the Sox a little bit with our teams here. Because I think it's why we're afloat are the reasons that you guys have woes with your teams. Like Devers, pop is there, Macho Man, but Macho Man's hitting above 300 in his rookie season for the Red Sox, and that's all you can really ask for out of him. Verdugo's been great. Turner has been getting on base, and he's been a really nice addition. He's a really good veteran piece that we've added. And then you just go Schreiber, another good season. Chris Martin was a guy I was like, why did we even sign him? And he's been awesome out of the bullpen. Winkowski's been so nasty out of the pen. Kenley's been solid. Like our rotation sucks. Our rotation stinks. Kluber sent bullpen. Who knows when we'll see him next. Sale has been, up and down. How, whatever. But our bullpen and our lineup have been really good. And I think that's clearly the biggest reason why we're above 500 and playing like sound, like competitive baseball. If you have a good bullpen and you have a good lineup, like you're going to be in the mix. Like if the Rangers had our lineup, our bullpen, we could be singing a way different tune for you guys. It could be the best team in baseball. And if, the Padres, if the guys were hitting like, some of the Red Sox guys were, you'd be singing a different tune. It's very interesting. I do think that the Bogaerts thing is an issue, but no Machado, and he was off to like the slowest start we've ever seen him be off to. That's detrimental to that team. But
it's all guys that got paid too.
I mean,
Machado
Trey Turner. Yeah. Trey Turner too. In Philly, he got paid, and he's been brutal.
It's a psychological thing. I think a lot of the time, when a guy is looking to get more money, like Soto's been on fire right now, but he's looking to get more money. He's looking to get that $400-500 million deal. You know, I mean, the guys who are having these contracts that come up want to prove themselves. The guys who just got the money, there's not as much motivation. Yes, there's a motivation to play baseball and win and be competitive, but like I don't think there's a coincidence that Bogarts, Machado, Cronenworth are all guys that literally just inked big deals right before the season started.
Yeah.
There is one guy that it didn't make a difference for though, who's just
Judge.
dominating. Yeah, he's
Judge.
dominating.
Yeah.
He's the best player. He's the best player in baseball. He's the best position player in baseball for sure, in my opinion. Like he could very easily win the MVP again.
Firm hold on number 1 seat.
Yeah, the best player is Ohtani, but like not the best non-Ohtani guy is Aaron Judge. There's no pitcher that's like as like dominant.
He robbed Teoscar the other night too.
Oh, he's a gross
hit
fielder.
2 home runs.
He's a gross fielder. He's amazing. I mean, kudos to the polar bear because you know that Pete Alonso is so competitive with like secret. I feel like he's really secretly competitive with Judge and wants to break that home run record. But there are guys like Freddie Freeman has been epic. Freddie Freeman's a Hall of Famer. I think he's I think he's locked that up. Arias is a guy like I know we were trying to see if he could hit 400, and I didn't mention him earlier with the Marlins, but he's at 380 right now. Bo Bichette, Nick, that was your hits leader pick. He's cruising. Yeah. Strider's cruising. Like there are a lot of guys that are playing really good baseball. The Braves we didn't mention really, but they've been amazing. But Aaron Judge to me, once again, is just I don't know. He is so, and you know who's also been amazing for the Rays? 2 guys that have been amazing, and then they were supposed to be Acuna for the Braves and Wander Franco for the Rays. Franco's been. I mean, these guys are just do it all kind of guys.
Randy too. Randy's been great.
Yandy Diaz has been an MVP candidate for the Rays. I mean, their whole team is just like start to finish, like guys that are just epic. But Wander Franco's he's gonna have a shot at the MVP, and so I mean, I think Acuna is the MVP favorite so far.
I mean, like you're talking about Freddie Freeman, but the Braves let that guy walk, and the replacement's been pretty darn good.
Yeah. I mean, he's also a really great fielder.
Olsen's having a fantastic season.
Yeah. The only issue with him versus Freeman is he strikes out so much. He strikes out so much.
He's hitting 238, and Freeman's hitting over 300. So, you know.
Yeah, but
that's just who they are, though. That's who they are.
Yeah. Lastly, one thing I want to ask you guys is because I think the White Sox suck, right? They're terrible. They are horrible. I mean, the Liam Hendricks thing, we have to give a shout out to him. Unbelievable to see him back.
Definitely.
Awesome. Are they gonna sell? And if they do they sell Luis Robert? Like, is he gone? Because he is like for a team that's been terrible, he's been pretty awesome. Like, do you sell on a guy like that and get everything you can for him?
I think you listen to offers. I don't think anyone's off the table because I mean, he's 25 years old. He'll be 26 this year. I mean, realistically, how far do you think you are off from getting competitive again? And eventually, you know, he's going to have to get paid because he's been in the league now for, I think this is his 3rd season. So they probably they have like, well, I guess in 2020 they had an extension, but regardless, eventually he's going to have to get paid again. I think you listen to offers because the team-friendly contract. He's obviously a great talent. If you can get like someone's entire farm from him, then yeah. I mean, like prospect 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
I just feel like they probably don't you think they have to believe they're still like a few players away from turning this thing around? I mean, they still have him, obviously. He's their best player. They have Eloy, though. You know, they signed Benintendi. They have Vaughn, Moncada. Like Anderson, okay, he's almost 30 now, but I mean Grandal is still, like they have the bats are still there.
Yohan Moncada is the Lonzo Ball of baseball. Could have been epic, all the talent in the world, never healthy enough to do it.
Yeah.
Always injured. I mean, the whole Lonzo Ball thing is tragic to me. He could have been sick. I mean, Eloy Schmoy, like he's got all the power in the world, but he's always hurt.
So is Luis though. Luis has gotten hurt a lot every single season. So I think all these guys.
Yeah.
Right.
Anderson can't stay. Yeah, exactly. Anderson can't stay healthy. Benintendi's the only guy that Benintendi and Andrew Vaughn have been like the only guys that have been really consistently in the lineup. But Benintendi has 0 home runs. Like, what a joke. And their
Yeah, it's
pitching
not
is
great.
Yeah.
like, and Cease, who was unreal last year, has been horrible.
It just goes to show that, like, as plugged in, because remember how you felt about him for a long time, Josh? Like,
Who?
there are so many players. Benintendi, when he was with the Sox, and there was a real question on whether or not they should keep him or let him go. And it just goes to show that, like, you Billy Bean this thing, like, guys are very replaceable in baseball. They really are. And he is a solid player, but you can find other guys that can get on base, and you can put things together, and you can replicate things so easily from a roster creation standpoint. And then guys slide all the time, and they have these lulls sometimes that last for multiple seasons. So it's not really a lull, I guess, at that point. Guys for 3 years will be one player, and then for the next 5, they'll be a completely different player. It's just a fascinating element of baseball that I feel like is not quite the same in the NBA. And the NFL, obviously, it's very different because guys have such short careers.
Mhm.
It reminds me more of soccer, honestly, where, like, guys are who they are, but, like, there's so many guys on the pitch at one time, right? You have 11 guys on the field. It really makes a difference, like, how guys play together. And for the thing like the Padres, if guys can't get on base, you guys don't consistently have guys getting hits and getting on base. You put your team in a tough position when every single guy is going up there trying to rip a solo shot every single time, right? Like, you can't put 6 strikers on the same team. It just doesn't work.
It's a really good point, honestly. I mean, we have guys on our team, like, and I've given Heimblum a really rough go of it, and I'm not ready to apologize yet because I still need to see us win and, like, get to the playoffs, like, with this, this kind of this
Right, because you
roster.
won with Mookie. You won with him.
We won it all, yeah.
Yeah.
But, like, guys like Rob Refsnyder, who we've brought in, he's been great. He's just on base like over 400. His on base percentage is over 400. Like, you can replace Benintendi with mixing and matching guys. Like, you replace guys mixing and matching, and, like, you're right. Like, pods have like 4 guys, 6 guys, like, who are trying to go up there and just, like, whack it out of the park every time. You can't get all your runs back in one at bat, I feel. So
That's not possible.
not possible. Rightio. We'll get Succession recap tomorrow.
Cool. Did you guys see that Leeds got relegated, and they have the largest contingent of American players on their team of any EPL team? So they're headed to the Championship League, which is the second division in English football.
Hate to see it.
Kind of a bummer.
Sorry about your
Yeah.
Stars too.
Yeah, I mean, that last night was a bad night for any team that dons the
We're in
green.
green.
I'm not
Except for
really
the Oakland
sure which-
Athletics, who beat the Braves.
That's a great point, Nick. That's a great point. That was a big win for them. And our buddy Graham was really excited about Soroka being back, but he did not do it. Actually, the lineup really didn't do enough last night for them. Now the Stars had a good run. Their goaltender was wishy-washy. Ottinger
game.
did not do. He had a really, really bad game, but he did in game 3 too. We lost 5-0. We lost 5-0, and we lost, was it 7-0 or 6-0? And I can't
6-0.
remember it.
6-0 yesterday.
Every 2 seconds,
That
I
was
was like,
Nick's
maybe-
tough game.
I was like, maybe we'll score one. And then they just
Well,
kept scoring.
We were talking about it. We were like, they were down 4-0 heading into the third period. And we were
Yeah.
saying, what's the NBA equivalent to being down 4-0 going into the third period? Like, heading to the fourth quarter, what is it, down 30, down 40? Is it 10 points a goal? And then after they scored a goal every time, I was like, okay, so what's the equivalent to 5-0? And then when they got to 6, I was like, so this is equivalent of being down like 100 or what?
Yeah, it's like it's literally impossible to come. But do you guys all watch together at home base?
Yep.
Yeah, I watched in the plane because that's obviously when the flight was. So I'm watching in the plane, and every time I'm like throwing my water, I'm like, God damn it, God! I'm like cussing like a little under my breath, and sometimes I'm like, yes, like I'm like when we're starting to come back, and Sam's like, shh, we're on a plane, like you can't be like yelling and screaming on
I'm
the
sure
plane.
there was someone else on the plane watching.
For
the game,
sure.
though.
The guy next to me was watching it, and like, yeah, it was. I once we were down by like 20 something in the fourth quarter, I was like, I can't even watch this anymore, and I just watched Ocean's 11.
Hey, when Haywood Highsmith picked Tatum's pocket in the second quarter, I was like, things aren't looking good.
Nah, this is so yeah.
They're basically worst player, just Cookies, your best player, and scored on the other end. That's,
see ya.
Yeah.
CSC wouldn't want to
How
be
was the connection? How was the connection on the plane?
fantastic.
Really? What airline did you fly?
Delta, bro.
Shout out to Delta.
Delta or JetBlue.
I mean,
Shout out to
a lot of
shout out-
airlines, whenever they do the live, they offer live TV, but then when you actually get the live TV cooking, it lags out. The connection's terrible, and it makes it really tough to watch live sports when you're on planes. So
I've watched multiple. I've watched a couple unfortunate things, and I've never seen my team win a playoff game on the plane. That I've come to realize.
All right. Well, now
Yeah.
you know when to not schedule flights.
Horrible. But I do want to give one more shout out to the ATX. Goated.
Hook 'em horns.
Like Morns.
Well,
Cool.
check out
All
our
right.
Horns Up pod for anyone that's listening, where we talk
Yeah.
with Quan Cosby about all things Texas football and Texas sports. Probably have an episode this week. I think there's some interesting chatter about Arch Manning, per usual.
That we will. Fisher, Tosopoulos, Snacks Crider, Horns Up. Free throws. Hit them.
Yikes.
Yikes. Hit your free throws. Get your horns up. We'll see you guys another time.